I found the empty hook on the vanity, and I could not breathe. The chain was gone. The little gold pendant my late wife wore even in the hospital. My hand shook like old leaves as I pulled out drawers and checked the soap dish as if a necklace could hide inside suds. When I asked my daughter, she stared at the floor and said she had sold it for a vacation. I heard the word sold and felt the world tilt. My name is Ransom Hale, 67, retired electrical lineman from Thornton, Colorado. For 38 years, I climbed poles in snow and summer heat and kept the lights on for families I would never meet. I married Lucinda when we were 25. She taught second grade and always smelled like chalk and orange lotion. We raised one son, Calder, in a small house with a cherry tree that stained the sidewalk each June. Lucinda died 2 years ago. My days turned quiet. I kept her necklace on a little velvet pad because it was the one thing my hands could still hold that felt like her. I am not a fancy man, but that pendant was sacred. Odessa came by on Fridays to help with groceries. She is 34, tall as a willow, smart in a way that can cut. I loved that about her when she was young. Lately, I felt it could slice you without bleeding. When I asked where the necklace was, she took a breath that sounded like a hurt. She said it fast, like ripping off a bandage. Dad, the necklace was sold. I needed the money for a vacation. I could not put the words together. She spoke about being burnt out, about friends who were going to beach in Florida, about me never doing anything fun, and how grief had swallowed our house after Mom. She said the pawn shop gave her a good price. She said she would buy it back after the trip, if I wanted, like it was a sweater. My ears rang. I walked into the backyard to keep from saying something that would live forever. The cherry tree was a black lace against the sky. I remembered Lucinda standing under it with the pendant catching the sun. The pendant was a small gold medallion with a wheat pattern, simple, smooth from years of wear. She wore it on the first day we met in the church basement when a fuse blew and the coffee urn died. She wore it when Calder was born and when we fought about money and when we made up over cold pizza. She wore it when she told me the tumor had a name. She wore it the morning she could not stand anymore and leaned on me like I was a tree. When the house grew quiet after the funeral, I put the pendant on the vanity, where I could see it when I shaved. I did not know it could be sold the way you sell a used mower. I did not know a memory could be priced. In the kitchen, Odessa was running her finger along the counter, as if dust were the real crime. I asked her which pawn shop. She crossed her arms and did not look at me. She said I was making her feel like a thief. I told her I was trying to get my wife back. She said that was not possible and that I was being dramatic. She said it was only a necklace. The words only a necklace together made my jaw clench so hard I heard a pop near my ear. I told her to write down the number. She rolled her eyes and pulled a receipt from her bag. The paper smelled like cheap ink. The shop was called Red Line Loans and Jewelry on 38th Avenue. The number was printed twice. I memorized it without meaning to. I waited until she left. I did not trust my voice. The screen door clicked, then the sound of her car settling low as she turned the corner. I sat at the table and stared at the phone. It felt like calling a hospital in the night. I dialed. The line rang twice. Then a man answered, his voice rough but not unkind. I told him my name. Told him my daughter had brought in a gold necklace with a wheat medallion 2 days ago. Told him I was an old man trying to get back a piece of his wife. He asked if I could describe any marks. I said no, except for a tiny scratch where the clasp had snagged on a wool coat one winter outside the grocery store. Lucinda laughed when it happened. He was quiet a long time. Sir, he said, you will not believe this. When we inspected the medallion today, we found it opened. I felt my mouth part. I did not know it opened. He said he was not in the habit of prying into keepsakes, but the hinge had shown itself when the jeweler cleaned the piece. The latch had been worn smooth with time, almost invisible. Inside, he said there was something. He did not say what. He asked if I could come down. My chest ached with a strange heat. I told him I would be there in 20 minutes. He said he would hold the item, and that it would be better if he showed me in person. His voice softened again. It belongs with you. I took the bus because my hands would not stop trembling. Outside the window, The city moved past in strips of color. A man pushed a stroller while holding a dog leash in his teeth. A teenager in a Letterman jacket kicked a pebble down the sidewalk like it had offended him. A woman in scrubs leaned her head against a pole and slept through 3 stops. I thought of Calder. He used to press his face against bus windows when he was little and narrate the world. He lives across town now, married to Taryn, who picks white plates with gold rims and speaks about boundaries in a way that leaves you outside your own yard. I had not told him about the necklace. Shame travels fast inside old bones. I thought of Lucinda again and her laughter, how it always came in threes. Red line loans and jewelry sat between a barber shop with painted poles and a nail salon with a neon open sign that hummed. The window glass was thick enough to show a second version of me walking as a ghost. I saw my cap, my old denim jacket, the way I tilt when my left knee argues with the weather. Inside, the air smelled of metal and cheap pine cleaner. Cases filled with rings and watches glowed under lights too bright to be kind. The man behind the counter had a shaved head and a scar that drew a line through his eyebrow like a comet. His name tag said Jasper. He nodded as if he had been waiting all his life for this one appointment. "You ransom?" he asked. I said yes. He reached under the counter and placed a medallion on a square of black velvet. There it was. My hands hovered. Up close, the wheat pattern looked like tiny hands holding one another. Jasper pointed to the side of the pendant. "See that thin line," he said. "That is the hinge." I leaned until my breath fogged the glass. I whispered that I had never seen it. He said a lot of people do not. He said the craftsman hid the seam. He said time had hidden the rest. He slid the velvet square toward me, so gently it felt like he was moving a sleeping bird. My fingers remembered the weight. The chain ran through my skin like a river. I thought it dried up. I pressed my thumbnail against the edge he showed me. There was a whisper of a click. The medallion parted like a book. I saw paper. Not much. Folded so small it looked like a seed. Something else, too. A sliver of metal the size of my smallest fingernail with teeth, like a smile. Jasper drew back to give me room. My heart knocked against my ribs. It sounded like somebody at the door. The room got small. I thought of secrets. I thought of what a wife tells a husband, and what a wife puts away to keep him safe. I did not open the paper. I closed the medallion with a soft press, as if it could feel pain. I looked up at Jasper. He nodded like a man who respects silence. I asked him what my daughter was paid. He told me the number without apology. It sounded like an insult wearing polite clothes. I took a folded envelope from my inner jacket pocket, where I keep cash for car repairs that never get done. I set it on the counter. I told him I would like to buy it back in full, and then some. He pushed the envelope back with 2 fingers. He said he would charge me what he gave her. He said some things should not move through the world as commodities. I thanked him without finding the right words. He printed a receipt with my name and the item description and slid it to me. He told me to take a seat if I needed. He gestured to a row of red chairs that looked like they used to live in a school. I tucked the pendant into my pocket with care, like tucking in a child. I told Jasper I would be out of his hair. He said to wait one more moment. He said he had something else I should see. He bent down and reached beneath the counter again, into a drawer that was not for customers. He set down a small, clear evidence bag with a label from a jeweler. The label had 2 words written in a neat hand and a date. His face changed. He asked me if I knew what those 2 words meant. I leaned in. The letters were tidy and precise, the way Lucinda wrote when she filled out permission slips for her students. The date was from the spring. Lucinda started wearing a scarf to hide the port in her chest. My mouth went dry. Jasper lifted the edge of the bag, so light, caught on the paper inside the pendant through the plastic. He told me to take a breath before I read it. He said he did not want me to fall. I felt the room tilt again, the way it had when Odessa said she had sold it. I could hear the hum of the nail salon next door like a faraway bee. My hand went into my pocket and found the weight of the medallion, steady, patient, waiting. I know this is only metal and paper, I said to no one, and I know there are people who lose whole lives and never get a single thing back. but I felt my chest fill with a strange courage. It felt like the first time I climbed a pole in a storm and the wind tried to throw me off, and I learned how to lean into it. I looked at the bag and the neat handwriting and the small, toothy sliver of metal inside the locket. I thought of Odessa at my counter, of Calder across town, of Taryn with her white plates and gentle little knives of speech. I thought of Lucinda, who would never hurt a fly but could set a boundary with a sentence. I picked up the evidence bag with both hands, so I would not drop it. The label with the 2 words faced me like a sign on a highway at night. I could almost hear Lucinda's voice the way it was when she wanted me to be brave. I turned the medallion in my palm until the hinge found the light again. I pressed my thumbnail to the seam and felt the tiny click that opened the door. I lifted the paper free, still folded. I could feel Lucinda in the creases. Outside, a tram bell rang somewhere. Jasper stepped back, giving me the whole counter as a stage. My heart thudded once, twice, 3 times. Then I unfolded the first corner. The paper was thin as tissue, yellowed by years against gold. It had been folded into a perfect square, small enough to hide inside a coin. My fingers trembled as I opened it, careful not to tear it. I could feel Jasper's eyes watching me, but he said nothing. The world outside the shop seemed to stop. No traffic, no voices, just a hum of the old ceiling fan spinning above us. When I finally flattened the note, my heart stuttered. It was Lucinda's handwriting, loopy, patient, familiar. I had seen it on birthday cards, grocery lists, and little notes she would stick to my lunch pail. Don't forget your sandwich, handsome. But this one was different. It said only, if you're reading this ransom, then you're stronger than I feared, and it's time you knew. Below the words was a small key, that tiny sliver of metal I had mistaken for a broken piece of jewelry. It was tied to the paper with a single red thread. I stared at it, uncomprehending. A key to what? Jasper leaned closer. You all right, sir? He asked softly. I nodded, but I wasn't. My knees felt hollow. I thanked him, shook his hand, and left with the pendant clutched tight in my fist. Outside, the late afternoon light cut through the smog, painting long shadows across the pavement. I walked for blocks without knowing where I was going. My mind was running through the years, every quiet moment Lucinda and I had shared, every secret she might have carried. She was the kind of woman who took care of everyone else before herself. What could she have hidden that required a key? By the time I reached the bus stop, I could hardly breathe. I sat on the bench and opened the locket again. The key glinted in the sunlight, no bigger than a matchstick, delicate but purposeful. I turned it over in my hand, searching for any marking, but there was none. Still, I had a strange sense I had seen something like it before, something from years ago. Then it hit me, the old chest in the attic. The one Lucinda had told me never to open until the time was right. I had always thought it held old photos or student papers, maybe mementos from her teaching days. She said it was her memory box. I respected her privacy. After she passed, I couldn't bring myself to go through it. Her smell still lingered on the lid, like lavender and old books. The bus rumbled up, and I climbed aboard, still holding the pendant. My reflection in the window looked older than I felt. Lucinda's words echoed in my mind. Time you knew. Knew what? That she had hidden something from me? That she had been protecting me? The questions burned all the way home. When I stepped into the house, the quiet wrapped around me like a heavy coat. The smell of old wood and lemon cleaner filled the room. On the mantel, a photo of Lucinda smiled from a cheap silver frame, her hair tied back, her eyes kind and full of life. I spoke to it like she could hear me. Lucy, what did you do? I climbed the stairs to the attic. The wooden steps creaked under my weight, the same way they had for decades. The pull chain light buzzed when I turned it on, revealing boxes stacked against the sloped walls. In the far corner sat the chest, an old cedar box with brass hinges, darkened by time. I knelt in front of it and brushed off a layer of dust. My hands shook as I found the tiny keyhole, barely visible beneath a decorative plate. I pressed the little key into it. It fit perfectly. I turned it once, and a faint click echoed through the attic. When I lifted the lid, the smell of cedar and old paper filled the air. Inside were letters, dozens of them, tied in neat bundles with ribbon. There was also a small brown envelope marked with my name. My chest tightened. I reached for it first. Inside was another note in Lucinda's handwriting. "If I'm gone," it read, "and you find this, know that I love you every day, even the hard ones. There are things I never told you because I want to protect you." And Calder, if he's still angry, please forgive him before it's too late. My throat tightened. I wiped at my eyes and kept reading. The letters in this chest are not all from me. Some are from someone else. Someone I forgave, though I never told you. If you read them, you'll understand why Calder changed. Don't hate him, Ransom. Just understand. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. What could she mean? Someone else? Forgave them? My hands hovered over the stack of letters tied in blue ribbon. I untied the first bundle and opened one. The handwriting wasn't Lucinda's. It was Calder's. The letter began, "Mom, I'm sorry I can't tell Dad. He wouldn't understand. But I can't live under his rules anymore. I know you think I'm being selfish, but I need space. Please don't tell him about the money." I froze. The money? What money? My eyes scanned the page. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I thought it was a loan. The man said he'd double in a month, and then I could pay it all back. But now he's calling, and I don't know what to do. The room spun. Calder had always been responsible, hardworking. Or so I thought. What man? What loan? Lucinda must have known something terrible and kept it from me. I dug deeper into the chest, pulling out more letters, each one darker than the last. Calder owed money, a lot of it, to someone dangerous. Lucinda had been trying to fix it quietly, protecting him and me. The final letter in the bundle made my blood run cold. "Mom, he said if I don't pay soon, he'll come for you. Please, don't tell Dad. I'll handle it." I sat there, staring at the words, my heart hammering. The small key fell from my fingers and clinked against the wood floor. My son had been in trouble. Serious trouble, and Lucinda had hidden it to protect us both. That was 2 years before she passed. I pressed the paper to my chest. "Oh, Lucy," I whispered, "you carried this alone." The light flickered above me, and the attic seemed to close in. I looked at the pendant in my palm, at the space where the paper had been folded. Lucinda had left me a path, not just to the truth, but maybe to forgiveness. I sat in silence for a long time, the house creaking around me like an old ship. Then I heard a sound downstairs, a door opening, soft footsteps on the hardwood floor. My stomach tightened. It was Odessa. "Dad," she called out. "You home?" Her voice was careful, almost too careful. I wiped my eyes and closed the chest, sliding the key into my pocket. "Up here," I said. The attic stairs groaned as she climbed. She appeared in the doorway, her hair messy, her eyes darting around. "You didn't answer your phone," she said, trying to smile. "You okay?" I looked at her for a long moment. The daughter who sold her mother's necklace for a vacation, standing in the same house that now held every secret I never knew. My voice came out calm, almost too calm. "Odessa," I said, "we need to talk about what you did." Her face froze, and for the first time since she was a teenager, I saw fear in her eyes. Downstairs, the phone began to ring. It was a pawn shop, and Jasper's voice, faint through the machine, said, "Mr. Hale, it's urgent. We found something else inside the locket's clasp, something you need to see right away." The attic went silent. I stared at Odessa, and she stared back. What else could there be? I whispered. The ringing stopped, leaving only the sound of Odessa's shallow breathing. Her hands were in her pockets, her shoulders stiff like a guilty child pretending to be calm. I walked past her, down the attic stairs, feeling every creak under my boots. My heart was still thudding with Jasper's words. Something else inside the clasp. At the kitchen table, I played the message again. His voice was steady but urgent. "Mr. Hale, when we finished cleaning the locket, we found a small memory card hidden beneath the latch. I think you need to see what's on it. I'll hold it for you. Just come by as soon as you can." A memory card. Lucinda had never used computers much. But Calder did. My pulse quickened. What could she have hidden on it? And why buried inside a locket meant for love and loss? Odessa hovered in the doorway, twisting the edge of her sleeve. "Dad," she said softly, "what's going on?" "What did he find?" I looked at her, really looked. The same brown eyes as Lucinda, but without the warmth. She had always been quick to speak and slow to listen. I thought of her words that morning, how she had called the necklace only jewelry. I felt anger rise again, but beneath it was something else. Fear. Fear that she was part of something she didn't understand. "Sit down," I said. My voice was rough from the attic dust and old grief. She hesitated, then obeyed. I placed the locket on the table between us. "You see this?" I asked. She nodded. "Your mother hid something inside. Letters. Notes. Secrets. You sold it without knowing what you were throwing away." Her eyes widened. "I didn't know it opened," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "You didn't want to know. You just wanted the cash." Tears welled in her eyes. "I was desperate, Dad. You don't understand. I've been drowning." "Drowning?" I repeated. "You think you're the only one gasping for air in this house? Your mother's been gone 2 years, and I still talk to her shadow. You could have come to me." She looked down at her hands. "I thought you wouldn't help. You barely talk to Calder anymore." That hit me like a slap. She was right, though she didn't know why. I hadn't spoken to Calder since the day he told me I was stuck in the past and slammed my front door. He had walked out and never looked back. "I'll deal with Calder when the time's right," I said. "But right now, I need to find out what's on that card." Odessa sniffled, wiping her eyes. "Do you want me to drive you?" I almost said no. Then I saw the guilt in her face, the tremor in her lip, and I realized that maybe this was the first time in months she was trying to do something right. I nodded. "All right," I said. "Let's go." The drive to Redline Loans was silent. The city stretched out in dull grays, the kind of light that makes everything look like it's waiting for rain. Odessa gripped the steering wheel like it might run away. Every few blocks she opened her mouth like she wanted to speak, then shut it again. When we pulled into the shop's lot, Jasper was already waiting by the door. He gave a small nod when he saw me. Inside, the display cases gleamed like cages. He motioned for us to follow him to the back room. On the counter sat a clear evidence bag with a micro SD card no bigger than a fingernail. "We found it wedged under the clasp," he explained. "Must have been there for years." I didn't touch the contents. "Figured you want to see it first." I thanked him. My hand was shaking again. So he handed me a chair. Odessa stood behind me, biting her lip. Jasper placed a small laptop in front of me. "Go ahead," he said quietly. I slid the card into the slot. The screen lit up. A single file appeared. It was a video. The date stamped on it was April 14th, 2021, 3 months before Lucinda died. My chest tightened. I clicked play. Lucinda appeared on the screen, sitting at her vanity, the same one where I used to see the necklace hanging. Her face was thinner, her scarf tied carefully around her head. She smiled gently, but her eyes were tired. "If you're watching this," she said, her voice faint but steady, "it means I'm gone, and it means Ransom found what I left behind." I froze. Odessa gasped behind me. Lucinda continued. "Ransom, love, I know you. You'll blame yourself for not seeing the signs, for not saving me, for not fixing Calder. But you can't fix what you don't understand. I didn't tell you everything, because I needed you to have peace while I was still here." She paused to catch her breath. "Our son got mixed up in something, and I couldn't risk him going to prison. I paid part of his debt. That's why the savings were gone. I was trying to protect him from the man he borrowed from." She looked down, tears sliding down her cheeks. "But there's something else. The man wasn't just anyone. It was your brother, Owen." My blood turned cold. Owen, my younger brother, the golden one, the charmer. We hadn't spoken in 15 years after he cheated me out of our parents' house. Lucinda's voice wavered. "Owen runs a loan business now, under another name. Calder didn't know who he was dealing with until it was too late. When I confronted Owen, he said he'd teach your boy responsibility. He wanted money and humiliation. I begged him to stop. She looked straight into the camera. He told me he'd back off only if I gave him something valuable, something you'd never part with. He asked for my necklace. The room spun. I gripped the table. Lucinda took a long breath. I refused. So he threatened to come after Calder. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd go after him and end up in prison. But if you're seeing this ransom, it means he's still out there, and it's time someone stood up to him. There's an address in the envelope in the chest. Go there, but not alone. Take the truth with you. End this for us. The screen went black. Odessa let out a small sob. I just sat there, staring at the reflection of my face in the dark screen. I looked like a ghost of the man I used to be. Jasper broke the silence. Sir, he said gently, you okay? I nodded, though I wasn't. My world had tilted again. My wife's necklace had been her shield, and my brother had been the sword aimed at our family. Calder's debt, Lucinda's silence. It all traced back to Owen. I stood up slowly. Thank you, Jasper, I said, my voice calm but sharp as wire. You've done more than you know. As we stepped outside, the cold air hit like a slap. Odessa was crying quietly. I didn't know any of this, she whispered. I know, I said, but we do now. I turned toward the car, the locket warm in my hand. For the first time in 2 years, I felt purpose, burning, clear, and dangerous. I was going to find Owen, and when I did, I'd make him understand what he stole. Not money, not jewelry, but peace. As Odessa started the car, my phone buzzed again. It was an unknown number. I answered. Ransom hail? A man's voice said, rough and familiar. It's been a long time. I froze. Owen. A low chuckle. I hear you've been asking about me. Careful, brother. Some secret should stay buried. Then the line went dead. Odessa looked at me, pale and shaking. Dad, she whispered. What did he say? I stared the road ahead, my jaw tight. He knows, I said, and now he's watching. The drive home felt longer than ever. Odessa kept glancing in the rear-view mirror, checking the road like she expected someone to follow us. I did not tell her I was doing the same. My brother's voice had crawled into my skull like an echo that would not leave. Careful, brother. I had not heard Owen Hale's voice in 15 years, and yet it felt as close as breath. When we turned onto my street, the sun was sliding behind the hills. The house looked smaller than I remembered, the windows glowing faintly like tired eyes. Odessa parked and cut the engine. Neither of us moved. You think he's dangerous? She asked quietly. I looked at her, the worry etched into her young face. He always was, I said, just never to the right people. She bit her lip. We should call the police. I shook my head. And tell them what? That a dying woman left a secret video in a necklace, and now her husband's crooked brother might come knocking? They'd pat me on the shoulder and send a cruiser by once a week. She stared at me, her voice trembling. So, what do we do? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at the house, the porch Lucinda painted blue, the yard she filled with sunflowers. The world had taken enough from us. We find the address your mother left, I said. We see what she wanted me to see. Inside, the house felt colder. I went straight to the attic, Odessa trailing behind. The chest sat where I had left it. I opened the envelope with my name. Inside was a folded piece of paper with a single line written in Lucinda's handwriting. If you ever need the truth, go to 1126 Willow Creek Road. No city, no state. But I knew that address. It was the old farm outside of Fort Morgan, our parents' land. The same property Owen had stolen from me 20 years ago. The place we had sworn never to return to. I exhaled through my teeth. She wanted me to go back, I said. Odessa frowned. Why? That place is abandoned, isn't it? Maybe not, I murmured. The next morning, I packed the truck. Old habits die slow. I filled the toolbox, threw in a flashlight, gloves, and my father's revolver, still unloaded, but heavy enough to matter. Odessa tried to talk me out of it. You can't just drive up there alone, she said. I'm not, I told her. You're staying here. Lock the doors. Don't answer for anyone. She grabbed my arm. What if he comes here? I looked her in the eye. Then you call Calder. Tell him to come home. Tell him his uncle's still playing with fire. Her lips trembled, but she nodded. The drive east took 2 hours. The highway turned to cracked asphalt, then dirt. Cornfields stretched out on both sides, dry and gray. The closer I got, the quieter it became. When the farmhouse finally appeared over the hill, my chest tightened. The roof sagged, the porch steps leaned, but the shape was unmistakable. Home once, now a grave for memories. I parked by the barn. The wind smelled of rust and dust. I half expected Owen's old pickup to be there, but the yard was empty, only the sound of the windmill creaking in circles. Inside the house, the air was stale. My boots echoed on the wooden floorboards. The wallpaper peeled in long curls. In the living room, the old family piano sat in the corner, one key stuck halfway down. I could almost hear Lucinda's laughter from years ago when she tried to teach Calder Amazing Grace. Then I heard something upstairs. A faint scrape. I froze. Hello? I called out. Silence. I gripped the banister and climbed the stairs, each step slow and deliberate. The sound came again from the master bedroom. I pushed the door open. The room was almost empty, except for a desk by the window. On it lay a stack of papers, a glass of water, and a phone still plugged into the wall. And sitting in the chair was Owen. His hair had gone white at the temples, but that same smug grin curved his mouth. He looked up like he'd been expecting me. Ransom, he said smoothly. You took your time. My hands curled into fists. What do you want? He leaned back, folding his hands behind his head. Always straight to business. You haven't changed. You used my wife, I said quietly. You used my son. He smiled cold and thin. I offered Calder a loan. He signed. He lost. Not my fault the boy gambled what wasn't his. My jaw clenched. And Lucinda? You threatened her. He laughed under his breath. I gave her a choice. She wanted to protect her family, so she paid her debt in full. She paid with her peace, I said. He shrugged. Everybody pays somehow. For a moment, I just looked at him. The man who shared my blood, but none of my decency. He had the same hazel eyes, the same slanted jaw, but where mine had softened with years, his were sharp with greed. I took a slow step forward. Was it 1126 Willow Creek Road, Owen? Why did she send me here? He smirked. You're standing in it, brother. But since you came all this way, he reached into the desk drawer and pulled out a thick envelope. She left this for you, told me to give it to you when the time came. I hesitated. You expect me to believe that? Doesn't matter what you believe, he said, sliding it across the desk. But you should open it. I didn't trust him, but my curiosity outweighed caution. I tore the envelope open. Inside were documents, property deeds, banking records, and at the bottom, a handwritten note in Lucinda's neat script. Ransom. This land was never lost. I bought it back years ago under my name. I wanted it to be yours again one day. I never told you because I knew Owen would find a way to ruin it. But now it's safe. You're safe. Let go of the anger, love. Don't let him take any more of you. My knees weakened. She had saved the land. The same land Owen claimed he stole from me. Owen's grin faded as I looked up. You didn't know, I said. He frowned. What? You never had it. She bought it back. You've been sitting here guarding something that isn't yours. The color drained from his face. You're lying. I slid the deed across the table. Her signature. The date? You tell me. He snatched it, his eyes scanning the page. For the first time, the mask cracked. He stood suddenly, knocking the chair back. That which... Watch your mouth, I said, stepping forward. He glared. You think this makes you the winner? You got nothing left but ghosts. I looked around the dusty room, at the light spilling across the faded wallpaper. Maybe, but they're mine, and you'll never touch them again. His hand twitched toward the drawer again. I saw the glint of metal before he could pull it out. I lunged, slamming the drawer shut with my weight. The two of us struggled, grunting, the desk rattling under us. The gun inside clattered to the floor. We froze. His eyes flicked to it, but I kicked it away. You don't get to decide how this ends, I said. He sneered. Neither do you. Then the sound of a car engine outside broke the silence. Tires on gravel. I turned toward the window. A black SUV had pulled up. Two men in dark suits stepped out. Owen's smirk returned. Seems the debt collectors followed you. I looked at him sharply. What are you talking about? He nodded toward the window. Let's just say you're not the only hale who owes people money. I grabbed the deed, shoved it into my coat pocket, and backed away. The men were already climbing the porch steps. Owen raised his hands. I'd stay, brother. They're not fond of runners. I turned and bolted down the stairs. Outside, the air was thick with dust and diesel. I made it to the truck as the front door burst open behind me. A man shouted, "Stop!" I ducked low, started the engine, and hit the gas. In the rear-view mirror, Owen stood on the porch, arms folded, watching me speed away. He looked small for the first time in his life. As the road stretched before me, the sun sinking behind the fields, I gripped the wheel tight. Lucinda's necklace swung from a mirror, catching the last light of the day. She had given me everything I needed, truth, proof, and a reason to fight back. But now, someone else knew I had it, and they were coming. The highway blurred beneath my headlights as dusk turned to night. My knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. Every car light in the distance felt like it might be following me. Lucinda's locket swung on the rear-view mirror, flashing gold with every turn. It felt alive, like her spirit was keeping watch. I didn't stop until the lights of Thornton appeared on the horizon. My hands were stiff when I parked behind a closed diner on the edge of town. The quiet was thick. I could still hear the echo of Owen's words in my head. They're not fond of runners. I took out my phone and stared at Calder's number. I hadn't called my son in over a year. Pride can build walls taller than grief, and I had built mine brick by brick. But now I knew the truth. His mistakes weren't just his. They were born from Owen's poison, and Lucinda had carried that weight alone. I owed her more than silence. I hit call. After 6 rings, his voice came through, sleepy, unsure. Dad. I swallowed hard. It's me. A pause. What's wrong? I need to see you, I said. Now. It's about your mother. He was quiet a long time before he said, Where are you? I gave him the address. Come alone. Calder arrived 20 minutes later, pulling up in a beat-up sedan. He looked older than 35 should look. Dark circles under his eyes, hair unkempt, shoulders heavy. When he stepped out, I saw the guilt in his face before he spoke. You found the locket, he said. I nodded. And the letters. He looked away, ashamed. I tried to tell you, Dad. I just didn't know how. I put a hand on his shoulder. Son, we'll talk about that later. Right now, you need to listen. Owen's behind everything. Your debt, your mother's fear, all of it. And he's not done. Calder blinked. Owen? Your brother? Yes. I took the folded deed from my pocket and showed it to him. Your mother bought back the family land. She hid it from him. He found out today. He's angry and dangerous. Calder stared at the papers, his jaw tightening. I'll kill him. No, I said sharply. That's not what your mother wanted. She wanted us to end this, not repeat it. He ran a hand through his hair. Then what do we do? Before I could answer, headlights washed over us from the road. A black SUV slowed near the diner's back lot. My heart dropped. Get in the truck, I hissed. We climbed in just as 2 figures stepped out of the SUV. One called out, Ransom hail. We just want to talk. Calder gripped the dash. Who are they? The men Owen warned me about, I said. I started the engine, slammed the gear into reverse, and sped out onto the highway. The SUV followed immediately, its lights bright in the mirror. Calder shouted over the wind. What do they want? They think I have what Owen owes them, I said. Do you? No, but they'll kill us to check. I took a sharp turn onto a service road that wound through the industrial park. The truck fishtailed, gravel spinning behind us. The SUV kept up, closing the distance. Then a gunshot cracked through the night. The back windows shattered, glass raining across the seats. Calder ducked. They're shooting at us. Stay down, I shouted, gripping the wheel. My old instincts kicked in. 30 years of climbing poles during storms, holding steady when the world shook. I cut the headlights and swerved into an abandoned lot behind a warehouse. The SUV roared past, its taillights glowing red as it sped down the main road. We sat in the dark, breathless. Calder pressed a hand to his forehead. Dad, what are we going to do? I stared out the windshield. We fight smart. Your mother didn't die for us to live scared. We waited until the night went still. Then I drove us to the edge of town, to the old storage units near the railway line. It was a place I used to rent when Lucinda and I first married, back when money was tight. The owner still owed me a favor. Inside the dim unit, I spread out the documents from the envelope, deeds, letters, and a second sheet I hadn't noticed before, an unsigned bank form. It listed an account under Owen's name, hidden under a shell company. There was also a note scribbled in Lucinda's hand. If anything happens, take this to the sheriff in Fort Morgan. He's the only one I trust. Calder frowned. You think she meant Sheriff Duncan? I nodded. He's old but honest. If anyone can bring Owen down, it's him. Calder leaned back against the metal wall. He won't believe us without proof. I tapped the locket. That's why we have this. He stared at it. You think there's more on it? Maybe, I said. Lucinda always layered her secrets. If she had one video, she could have hidden another. By morning, the storm rolled in thick clouds, the kind that sit low enough to touch. I borrowed a laptop from an old friend at the diner. The memory card still had one encrypted file. I ran it through a recovery program. Calder watched in silence as the screen flickered, then displayed a single image, a scanned document. It was a contract. Owen's signature next to a loan agreement with a criminal outfit in Denver. At the bottom was a line marked collateral. Property at 1126 Willow Creek Road. I exhaled sharply. He tried to sell the land twice. Once to us, once to them. Calder's eyes widened. And now they think you have it. I nodded grimly, which means they'll keep coming. He slammed his fist against the table. Then we go to the sheriff. We end this now. Before I could agree, my phone buzzed again. A text message from an unknown number. You should have stayed away. Ransom. We'll be seeing you soon. The hairs on my neck rose. I showed it to Calder. His face turned pale. Dad, what do we do? I slipped the necklace around my neck and tucked it under my shirt. We finished what your mother started. I said. We packed the papers and left before sunrise, heading north toward Fort Morgan. The wind screamed against the windows, and rain began to fall. Somewhere behind us, an engine growled in the dark. Calder looked at me, his voice low. You think Owen sent them? I stared straight ahead, eyes on the road. No, I said quietly. I think Owen's running too. By the time we reached Fort Morgan, the rain had turned to fog. The sheriff's office sat at the edge of town, lights dim in the morning gloom. I parked out front and handed Calder the envelope. You wait here, I said. If anything goes wrong, drive to Odessa's. Don't look back. He frowned. Dad, promise me, I said. He nodded reluctantly. I stepped inside the sheriff's office. The walls smelled of coffee and gun oil. Sheriff Duncan was behind his desk, gray hair combed back, reading a report. When he looked up and saw me, his face softened. Ransom hail, he said. It's been a long time. Too long, I said. I need your help. He gestured for me to sit. What's this about? I placed the deed and Lucinda's note on his desk. It's about my brother, about what he's done, and about who's coming for both of us. Duncan frowned, reading the documents. That's a serious claim. You got proof? I pulled the locket from around my neck and set it down. More than enough. He turned it over in his hand, nodding slowly. You know, he said, Your wife came to me once, just before she passed. Told me if you ever showed up with this, to believe you. My chest tightened. Then you know what's coming. He nodded grimly. Yeah, trouble. Outside, thunder rolled across the plains. And through the window, headlights cut through the fog. 3 black SUVs pulling into the lot. Duncan's hand went to his holster. Looks like they beat the paperwork, he said. I turned toward the door, calm as stone. Then we give them the welcome they earned. The rain had turned to sleet by the time the first SUV stopped outside the sheriff's office. The wipers on the glass doors thudded like a slow heartbeat. Sheriff Duncan and I exchanged a look. 2 old men who had seen too much of life to mistake coincidence for chance. Back room, he said quickly. There's a side door that leads to the holding cells. If this goes bad, that's your exit. I nodded, but I didn't move. They're not here to talk, I said. He checked his revolver, the motion calm and practiced. Then we'll make them regret coming in the rain. Through the window, I saw 3 men climb out of the SUVs. They were built like bulldozers, coats slick with water, eyes hidden beneath caps. One carried a briefcase. That was always a bad sign. The kind of sign that said money and blood were about to meet in the same room. The door opened. The man in front stepped inside, tall and broad, with a scar that ran from his chin to his ear. Morning, he said, his tone too polite. We're looking for Mr. Ransomhale. Duncan's voice was steady. He's not under arrest, and this is a county facility. You'll have to state your business. The man smiled thinly. It's a business matter, Sheriff. Strictly financial. Then you can leave your paperwork, Duncan said. We'll make sure it gets to him. The man's smile vanished. He opened the briefcase and pulled out a file, flipping it open so Duncan and I could see. Inside were photos, one of my house, one of Odessa leaving the grocery store, one of Calder's car parked outside my driveway. My blood went cold. You're playing a dangerous game, Mr. Hale, the man said, finally turning his gaze to me. Our client wants what's his. I met his stare. Your client's my brother. He doesn't own a damn thing. Maybe, he said, but he owes a lot of money. And when he runs out, we come looking for the next of kin. Then you're wasting your time, I said. I'm broke and stubborn. Duncan shifted his stance slightly, hand still on his holster. You boys should leave. The man chuckled. Sheriff, we're not here to cause trouble. He tapped the photo of my house. But if the necklace, the land, or the documents aren't handed over, there will be trouble, starting with his family. I stepped closer. You touch them, I said, and you'll wish you never got in that car. The man's grin widened, shark-like. Old threats from an old man. You got 48 hours. Hale. Then debts come due. He closed the briefcase, signaled to his men, and turned for the door. As they stepped out, their boots left muddy prints across the tile. The taillights of the SUVs vanished into the fog. The room was silent, except for the ticking clock on the wall. Duncan let out a slow breath. That was a warning, he said. No. I replied, watching the rain streak down the glass. That was a countdown. When I stepped outside, Calder was pacing by the truck, his face pale. Dad, who were they? Collectors, I said. Owen's hired muscle. What did they want? The land, the locket, maybe both. He rubbed his temples. We can't fight people like that. I looked at him. We don't have to fight. We just have to outlive them and expose Owen before they do. Duncan came out, buttoning his coat. I'll put out a quiet bulletin, he said. No sirens, no headlines. Just eyes on the road between here and Denver. If Owen's running, we'll find him. Thank you, Sheriff, I said. Lucinda trusted you. He gave a small smile. That woman was the best of us. Don't let her faith go to waste. We spent the night at a roadside motel, the kind that smells like old cigarettes and cleaning powder. Calder couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, staring at the rain. She really hid all this, he said softly. All this time. She was trying to protect us. I said. He nodded, then looked at me. You think Owen's still at the farm? I shook my head. No, he's running scared now. But if he's smart, he'll try to sell the land again to them. Calder frowned. You mean he'd use Mom's land to pay off criminals? He already did, I said. That's why we're going to stop him first. At dawn, I called Duncan again. Anything? Got a hit, he said. Owen's car was seen heading south. Word is, he's trying to meet someone in Pueblo, some buyer who doesn't ask questions. I hung up, turned to Calder, and said, We're driving south. The rain had stopped, but the sky still looked heavy. The plain stretched wide and empty, fields shining with wet light. Hours passed in silence until Calder finally spoke. Dad, he said quietly, what if we don't make it? I glanced at him. Then we make it mean something. He nodded, eyes on the horizon. I miss her. So do I. I whispered. We reached Pueblo by noon. The city was alive with weekend noise, cars, markets, the smell of barbecue drifting through the air. But under all that life, I felt something darker waiting. We found Owen's car parked outside an abandoned rail yard. Its trunk was open, paper scattered. No sign of him. But there were fresh tracks in the mud leading into one of the warehouses. Inside, the air smelled like oil and rust. Light cut through the broken roof in slanted beams. Then I heard it, a voice, hoarse and desperate. Owen, I called. Footsteps echoed. Then he stepped into the light, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. His face was pale, his hands trembling. You shouldn't have come, he said. Neither should you, I replied. You brought killers to our family. He shook his head wildly. You don't get it, ransom. They're not after money anymore. They want leverage. The land. The proof. Calder stepped beside me. Proof of what? Owen looked from me to Calder, eyes glistening with panic. The land sitting on a pipeline route. Federal buyout coming next year. Millions. They found out Lucinda bought it back. And they want to make sure we don't see a cent. I felt the air leave my lungs. Lucinda had known. She must have found the documents years ago and realized what Owen was planning. She hadn't just protected the land. She'd saved our legacy. Owen's voice cracked. I tried to tell them you didn't know. But now they think you're hiding something. A car door slammed outside. Tires on gravel. Owen's eyes widened. It's them. Before I could speak, a gunshot split the air. The glass exploded near the window. Calder grabbed my arm. Dad, we have to go. But I was already moving toward Owen. You're coming with us. I said. He shook his head. No, they'll never stop. Another shot. This one closer. The sound bounced through the steel walls. I grabbed Owen by the collar. You started this. You're going to help me end it. He nodded shakily. There's a back exit. We ran, the echo of footsteps chasing us. Outside, the rain had begun again, drumming against the tin roof. The three of us sprinted toward the far fence. Behind us, men shouted, boots splashing through the mud. I turned back once, saw one of them raise his gun, then a flash, and Owen stumbled. He fell hard, clutching his side. Calder shouted, Uncle, and ran to him. I followed, kneeling beside them. Owen's breath came in short gasps. His hand was slick with blood. Take it, he whispered, shoving a flash drive into my palm. Everything, the contracts, the bribes, enough to burn them all. I gripped his hand. You can come with us. He shook his head weakly. I'm tired of running. His eyes flicked to Calder. Tell your mother I'm sorry. Then his chest went still. The warehouse behind us was filling with footsteps. I shoved the flash drive into my pocket and grabbed Calder's arm. Run. We slipped through the fence into the storm, the sound of gunfire fading behind us. The rain washed the blood from my hands as we reached the truck. Calder's face was pale, eyes wide. Dad, he's dead. I nodded grimly, and he just gave us the one thing that might save us all. I started the engine, the locket cold against my chest. We're going back to Fort Morgan, I said. Time to finish what your mother started. The highway shimmered under a gray curtain of rain as we sped north. Calder sat beside me, silent, his hands clenched in his lap. The flash drive fell heavy in my pocket, heavier than anything I'd ever carried. Owen's blood still stained my sleeve. He was gone, and though I'd spent half a lifetime hating him, I couldn't stop seeing the terrified boy he once was. Lucinda would have told me to forgive, but forgiveness is easier said than done when the dead leave their chaos behind. Dad, Calder said quietly, "Do you think he was telling the truth about the pipeline?" I nodded. It explains everything. The land, the debts, the threats. He was trying to sell our family's history for a payday. Calder shook his head. All that, and Mom was the one who paid the price. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The rain softened to a drizzle as Fort Morgan's lights appeared in the distance. The town looked almost peaceful from the hill, but I knew the storm hadn't passed. Not yet. We'll go straight to Sheriff Duncan, I said. If the files on this drive are what Owen claimed, it'll expose everyone involved. The loan sharks, the developers, maybe even people higher up. Calder looked uneasy. You think the sheriff can protect us? He's the only one who can, I said. When we reached the sheriff's office, the place was dark except for a single lamp glowing in the front window. I pushed the door open and called out, "Duncan?" He appeared from his office, tie loose, coffee mug in hand. "Ransom," he said. "You look like you've been through hell." "Close enough," I replied, handing him the flash drive. This is what Lucinda and Owen were hiding. It's all here. Contracts, bank transfers, blackmail lists. He took the drive, frowning. "Where'd you get it?" "Owen gave it to me," I said, "before they killed him." Duncan's eyes hardened. "Then we don't have much time." He plugged the drive into his computer. The screen filled with folders labeled Aegis Development, Pipeline Project, and Investor Ledger. The last one opened to reveal a list of names. Dozens of them. Some familiar, some not. Calder leaned over his shoulder. "Those are government contracts," he whispered. "And that," he pointed to a name near the top, "that's one of the loan officers who came to our house." Duncan whistled low. "Looks like your brother was a small piece in a big dirty puzzle. These folks were using your land as collateral for something worth millions. When Lucinda bought it back, she ruined their plan." My throat tightened, and they made her pay for it anyway. Duncan looked up at me. "If this gets out, it'll burn half the county." "Good," I said. "Let it burn." He spent the next hour copying files, typing notes, sending encrypted emails to state investigators he trusted. The whole time, the wind howled outside, shaking the windows. Calder paced the floor. I watched the door. Finally, Duncan unplugged the drive and handed it back to me. "Keep it safe," he said. "If anything happens to me, this proves your innocence and your wife's courage." I slipped it into my jacket. "What happens now?" He sighed. "I've got friends at the Attorney General's office. I'll forward the documents first thing in the morning. Until then, you and your boy lay low. There's a cabin up on Ponder Creek. No one will find you there." Calder nodded. "We'll go now." But before we could move, a loud crack echoed outside. Gunfire. The front window shattered, spraying glass across the floor. "Down!" Duncan yelled, pulling his weapon. We ducked behind his desk as more shots tore through the walls. The air filled with splinters and smoke. Calder's voice trembled. "They found us." I looked at Duncan. "Back door." He pointed to the hallway. "Go. I'll cover you." I grabbed Calder's arm, and we sprinted down the corridor. The back exit was half hidden behind a file cabinet. I shoved it open and felt the cold night air hit my face. Rain poured again, thick and heavy. Behind us, another gunshot cracked, and Duncan shouted. Then silence. Calder froze. "Dad." I gritted my teeth. "We can't go back." We ran to the truck and jumped in, mud splashing as the tires spun. Through the storm, I could see the headlights of 2 black SUVs turning onto the road behind us. "They're not giving up," Calder said, voice shaking. "No," I said, gripping the wheel, "but neither are we." The chase through the countryside felt endless. Every curve of the road lit up with the flash of headlights behind us. I swerved through side roads, across gravel paths, until we hit the old bridge near Ponder Creek. The wood beneath the tires groaned. "Dad," Calder said, "the bridge looks unstable." "It's the only way," I said. Halfway across, the first SUV followed. I floored the gas, the truck lurching forward. The bridge shuddered, boards splintering beneath us. When we reached the other side, I turned sharply, spinning the truck sideways. The old structure gave one final groan and collapsed into churning creek below, taking the SUV with it. Calder stared, wide-eyed. They're gone. I nodded, breathless. For now. We drove another mile up the winding hill until we saw the cabin Duncan mentioned, a small structure tucked beneath pine trees. The windows glowed faintly from a generator's light. I parked, killed the engine, and listened. Only the rain, soft and steady. Inside, the cabin smelled of cedar and old smoke. A blanket lay folded on the couch, a kettle on the stove. We locked the door, checked the windows, and sat in silence. Calder rubbed his hands together. What if Duncan's dead? I stare at the fire I just lit. Then we make sure his death counts for something. He looked at me, tired, scared, but stronger than before. Mom would have been proud of you, you know. My throat tightened. She'd have been proud of you, too. He smiled faintly. So what now? I pulled the locket from around my neck, turning it over my hand. Now we wait for morning. And then we finish it. Hours passed. The rain eased. The world fell quiet. I must have dozed off because when I woke, it was nearly dawn. Calder was asleep in the chair beside the window. I stood, stretched, and reached for my coat when I heard it. A soft knock on the door. 3 slow taps. I froze. Calder stirred. Dad. The knock came again, firm this time. I whispered, "Stay back." I stepped closer to the door and peered through the small curtain. A man stood outside, soaked from the rain, wearing a sheriff's badge on his chest. Duncan. I opened the door cautiously. "You're alive." He nodded, his face pale. "Barely. They hit me in the shoulder. I lost them in the woods." I stepped aside. "Come in." He shook his head. "No time. They're regrouping. You need to leave, now. They're coming with reinforcements." I glanced at Calder. "Where do we go?" Duncan's eyes met mine, filled with urgency. "There's a woman in Denver, Assistant District Attorney Maria Layton. She's expecting the files. If you can get them to her, she'll blow this thing wide open." "Where is she?" I asked. He pulled a card from his pocket. "Her office, 9th and Ashland." Then he gripped my arm. "You've got one shot at this. Ransom. Don't stop. Don't look back." I nodded. "We'll finish it." He managed a small, tired smile. "Your wife would have liked that." Then he turned and disappeared into the rain. I closed the door and looked at Calder. "Pack what you can. We're going to Denver." He frowned. "You think we'll make it?" I glanced at the locket in my palm. "If your mother is still watching, we will." As the truck roared back onto the highway, the sky began to lighten behind us. I reached up and touched the pendant hanging around my neck, whispering into the dawn, "We're almost there, Lucy." But deep down I knew the hardest part was still waiting. The highway into Denver was ghostly at sunrise. Pale streaks of orange broke through clouds, and for the first time in days, the rain stopped. The world was quiet, too quiet. Calder drove while I scanned every mirror, every passing car. The city skyline rose like steel teeth in the distance, gleaming under the new light. We were both exhausted. The road had worn us thin, but fear kept us sharp. In my pocket was a flash drive Owen had died for, and around my neck, Lucinda's locket still rested warm against my chest. Every beat of my heart seemed to whisper her name. Calder's voice broke the silence. "Dad, if we hand this over, do you think it ends?" I looked out the window at the world rushing past. "It ends one thing," I said, "but ending isn't the same as healing." He nodded slowly. "I guess that's all we can hope for." Downtown Denver was already waking when we arrived. Delivery trucks, commuters, and the distant wail of sirens painted the city in motion. I parked the truck 2 blocks from 9th and Ashland. The district attorney's building was a tall, clean structure of glass and stone. Too new, too bright for men like me who had spent life in the mud. We climbed the steps, every sound magnified by the pounding in my chest. Inside, The receptionist looked up as we entered, her expression wary at the sight of two soaked, tired men carrying a bundle of papers. "We need to see Assistant District Attorney Maria Layton," I said. She frowned. "Do you have an appointment?" I slid the flash drive across the counter. "She'll want to see this." Her eyes flicked to the drive, then to me, without another word. She picked up the phone, murmured something into it, then nodded. "Room 514, she said. "She's expecting you." Maria Layton was younger than I expected. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, hair tied in a neat bun. She stood as we entered, extending her hand. "Mr. Hale," Sheriff Duncan called. "I'm sorry about what happened." "Thank you," I said, shaking her hand. "But we're not here for sympathy. We're here for justice." She gestured for us to sit. "Let's see what you have." Calder handed her the drive. Within minutes, her computer filled with documents, bank statements, contracts, property deeds, names, and payments that stretched across half the state. Her brows furrowed as she scrolled. "This is," she whispered, "massive. These files show collusion between land developers, local officials, and private lenders. They use your brother's company to move laundered money through real estate acquisitions. The pipeline project was just a cover." "So it's all real," I said quietly. She nodded. "More than real. It's enough to indict a dozen people, maybe more. If we can verify the signatures and wire transfers, this will bring the whole thing down." Calder leaned forward. "Then do it, please. My mom, she gave everything to protect this." Maria looked at him with soft eyes. "I will, but you both need protection now. Once I send this to the state task force, they'll come for you. They won't risk this going public." I smiled grimly. "They've already come. They failed." She hesitated, studying me. "You remind me of my father," she said finally. "He was stubborn too, the good kind." Before I could respond, a sound echoed down the hallway. Boots. Hard, deliberate. Maria's expression shifted instantly. She stood and whispered, "That's not my security team." My stomach dropped. They found us. Calder stood, eyes darting to the door. Maria grabbed the flash drive and slipped it into a metal drawer beneath her desk. "Go out the back. There's an emergency exit through the file room." "What about you?" I asked. "I'll buy you a few minutes," she said firmly. "Now go." We ran down the hallway, our footsteps echoing off the tile. Behind us, voices barked orders, men's voices, sharp and cold. Then came the sound of a door crashing open. Calder pushed to the file room's rear exit, and we spilled into a narrow alley that smelled of wet brick and exhaust. I turned back once, just long enough to see two men in dark coats storm Maria's office. "Dad!" Calder shouted. I turned and ran. We didn't stop until we reached the parking garage. My legs burned. My breath came in shallow bursts. Calder fumbled with the truck keys, hands shaking. As soon as the engine roared, I heard shouting behind us, the same men spilling from the alley. "Go!" I yelled. The truck peeled out, tires squealing on wet pavement. We merged into traffic, horns blaring. Through the mirror, I saw a black sedan weaving after us. "Dad, what if they get to drive?" Calder said. "They won't," I replied. "Maria's smarter than they think." The chase tore through the city, past skyscrapers and stoplights, until we hit the outskirts. I took a sharp turn into an industrial park, hoping to lose them in the maze of warehouses. The sedan followed, engine snarling. "They won't quit," Calder said. "Neither will I," I answered. We reached a dead end, a chain-link fence and a wall of stacked containers. I slammed the brakes. The sedan stopped 30 feet behind us. Two men stepped out, guns raised. "Get out of the vehicle," one shouted. Calder froze. I reached into my coat, feeling the locket beneath my shirt. Lucinda's warmth still lingered. Her voice came to me, steady, calm, like it always had when the world fell apart. "You're stronger than I feared." I opened the door and stepped out slowly, my hands raised. "You don't want to do this," I said. The man sneered. "Oh, I think we do." Behind him, sirens wailed. Faint at first, then closer. The men turned. Police cruisers rounded the corner, lights flashing blue through the fog. Calder let out a sharp breath. The sheriff, he made it. Within seconds, half a dozen officers surrounded the sedan. The gunmen dropped their weapons, faces pale. Duncan's voice boomed through a loudspeaker. Hands on your heads. Now. The men obeyed. I lowered my arms as Duncan approached. His shoulder was bandaged, his face grim but alive. You didn't think I'd miss the ending, did you? He said. I smiled weakly. You always did a good timing. He nodded toward the truck. Maria called in. She said you'd made it out. Calder leaned against the hood, breathing hard. Is it over? Duncan looked between us, then nodded slowly. For now, the state's taking over. Maria's safe, and so are you. 2 days later, we stood on the old farm at Willow Creek Road. The rain had finally stopped for good. The sun broke through the clouds, spreading light across the fields. The house was still empty, but it didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt reclaimed. Calder stood beside me, hands in his pockets. What happens now? I looked at the horizon where the wheat swayed in the breeze. Now we start again. We fix what's left. Maybe plant something worth keeping. He nodded quietly. Mom would have liked that. I smiled. She would have. We walked to the porch. I reached into my coat and pulled out the necklace. The gold caught the sunlight, warm and gentle. She wore this every day, I said softly. Said it made her feel brave. Calder watched as I looped it around the branch of the cherry tree in front of the house. It swung gently, catching the wind. She'd want to hear. I said, back home. He nodded, eyes shining. For the first time in years, the world felt still. The pain didn't leave, but it changed shape, less sharp, more like a scar that reminded me I had survived. I looked at the land that had once been stolen, now ours again. You know, I said, your mother used to say every storm ends somewhere. You just have to keep walking until you find the sun. Calder smiled faintly. Guess we found it. I took one last look at the necklace, swaying gently in the light, and whispered, we did, Lucy. We did. Then I turned to my son. Let's go home. And for the first time since she left, I knew what that word meant again.